Mike calling plays? I mean, just talk about how does that benefit you guys?
Well, I think here's what I would say about it. At the end of the day, the guy who's ultimately in charge, I think it's a huge plus. And I think Mike really felt like it was in our best interest to keep Kellen when he first got here, because Kellen's outstanding. I think he's done an incredible job for us, and I think he's been great for Dak. And I thought he didn't want to slow that growth, because Dak was, and he still is. I mean, we think Dak's on a great path. But the more he's, been around Kellen, and as much as he respects him, there's still a part of it that doesn't totally jibe, if you will, with what he wants out of the offense. And so, he wants to, just like you would a quarterback, unlike you would any coach, you want them to thrive and bring what they bring to the table. I just think Mike wanted Kellen to roll, but he didn't totally 100%, agree with all the philosophies and, the small things that go into. And I think it ultimately came down to, hey, if we're going to take the next step, he wants to see if he can put his, if you will, make the changes that he thinks will make a difference that he didn't necessarily think Kellen might have believed in. And that's, that's common. I mean, we had that with Jason and Scott Linehan and Mark Colombo and Callahan and on down the line. And I also think that Mike thinks he can meld the passing game to the running game, with who he's going to hire for the offensive line, Lunda and the tight ends, and ultimately the running backs and the running back coach. He wants to bring all that together. And I think it's outstanding, and I think it's got a great chance for us to take the next step.
Jerry made it sound like it's not just yards when you're looking at Zeke. There's way more that he brings to the table there. Can you kind of expand on that?
I agree with that. I think Zeke's the ultimate competitor. I think, obviously his style is different than Tony's. Tony's, if you will, if you're a fan, and Tony's kind of a fan's man because of the juice and all that. But, at the end of the day, Zeke's a blue-collar guy. And his competitiveness and what he brings to the table is, you can't really define it with stats. So I just think, that's the way we look at it. I think Zeke's just been amazing in terms of what he's done for the Cowboys in his tenure here. And, certainly, it's just hard to define. Like I said, Tony's more of a fans guy. I mean, you see the flash, you see the juice, and then, like I said, Zeke's a blue-collar guy that's, bringing things to the table that are hard to define.
How do you afford both of them?
I mean, I think we've got to, obviously, I think, we're probably one of the top teams in the league already with what we pay running backs. And so, we got to make sure, we pay attention to this, where our money goes in terms of, how you spread it out. I think Jerry's called it for many years how you divide up the pie, but no, I think we've got to relook at. I think it's obviously we got to look at Zeke, and then obviously Tony's looking to make more money. So we've got to relook the whole thing there in terms of running back and what that looks like.
Can you say you want Zeke back now, or you still have to look at all that?
Oh yeah, I mean, you always want Zeke. The question is, do the numbers work? Right. Like I said, I mean, you can't define what Zeke does for our football team. I mean, he's just a competitor, and what he brings is, he's a special guy.
The numbers were down. Did the eye test tell you he's not declining?
Oh, I don't want to. Like I said, those things are hard to define in terms of who gets the ball when, and I would never go into Zeke's declining. I mean, I think Zeke's as big a competitor as he's ever been. No one respects him more than Jerry and myself. No one respects him more than this organization. No one respects him more than our football team, the players on the team. It's just sometimes it's a hard business, and we're going to have some. And I think he knows that. I think I've seen him quoted. We're going to have, we're going to have to talk business.
do you speaking of business, do you address Dak's deal now? I mean, with the number, I know we talked before that it's something that you would look at or could look at.
Yeah, I think you can look at it, absolutely. I mean, it's not, do we do it or not? I mean, it takes two parties to talk.
Right.
And, but no one thinks, I mean, obviously Dak's, he's the key guy on this football team, first and foremost. Everything starts and stops with him. And no one respects him more than Jerry and myself. And, I mean, that's always up for, when you're talking about somebody who's, but, I think we were just counting. You're going to have 12, 13, 14 quarterbacks making $40+ million, and you look up. So he deserves to be in that category, but when someone on any of those 13, 14 teams making that kind of money, you're always talking about what he's making.
And how you
And the bigger thing for us is Dak's going to be our guy for the next, hopefully, 10 years.
Sure.
And you say, well, that's a long time because he's already played, 6, 7.
Yeah.
But I think Dak will play that long. And he takes care of himself. He's driven to be great, and fully expect him to be here for 10 years.
You how does the move with McCarthy and him calling plays help Dak and get him to take the next level?
Sometimes change is good. I mean, first of all, I'd start by saying no one thinks more Kellen Moore than me. And he and I had a great conversation. And, sometimes if you want to take the next step, I know he had interviews the last 2, maybe 3 years for head coach. And sometimes in order to take the next step, you got to get uncomfortable and do something different. And sometimes for Dak to take the next step, he may have to be uncomfortable and do something different. For Mike to take the next step, he's got to do something different and uncomfortable. For us to take the next step, same thing. And so I would say we all fall in that category. Not just Dak, not just Kellen, not just Mike, not just me and Jerry. I mean, someone said, at some point if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results, then good luck. So, I mean, there's a little bit of that there. And I think Kellen feels that way. I think we feel that way. I think Dak feels that way. I can't say I think Dak. That's up to Dak and Mike to say, but I think they might feel similar.
Did you have to have a talk with Dak to say, this is what Kellen wants to do, this is what's happening here?
No, things happen fast. I mean, I don't think any player wants in the middle of picking. I mean, maybe a few over the years, but not many want in the middle of that. I mean, they expect Jerry and I to make the right call on those type of things. And, Dak's always been respectful of protocol and mechanics and, how you do things. And I think he would say he respects ultimately the decisions Jerry and I make in terms of, along with obviously Mike and what he's going to do with his staff, that we'll make. And he knows we're going to do it in his best interest because he knows we want to win just like he wants to win the big one.
You talked about doing the same thing over and over with expecting the same results. You're talking about quarterback. There's been a lot of questions too about free agency and draft strategies. There's some teams that have.
I didn't say that about Dak.
No, you said that about the.
I'm saying about offensively,
offensive
philosophy,
right.
Overall team. I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yeah. Just that.
I mean, Dak's going to be our guy over and over again, just like Troy was, just like Romo was.
What about
like Staubach was?
Draft philosophy as far as free agency and maybe do you expect any kind of changes there as far as maybe being a little bit more aggressive in free agency than you have?
If we see the opportunity to do something unique in free agency, we always would do something. I mean, we made a unique trade with Amari Cooper 4 years ago. How long was it?
Yeah,
I think
4
4
years ago.
Yeah. If we see the right opportunity, we'll seize it. We do our analytics, and if you look at the final 4 teams, the final 8 teams, the final 6 of the 8 are in the top 10 in percentages of homegrown versus free agency. I think Buffalo fell out of that, and Jacksonville fell out of that. They were more 50-50. We're number 1, 70-30, but the homegrown. And so, at the end of the day, I wouldn't argue with that. Now, I would never, and I don't think Jerry would either, rule out if we see the opportunity to get a player that works and fits. At the same time, we all know what we're looking at. We're looking at CD Lamb. Do we all want to keep him? Every fan wants to, everybody in the organization. I think most fans do. Diggs, Micah. The list goes on in terms of, who we got to sign. And at the end of the day, can you do it like the Rams? Can you do it like Philly and load up for 1 year and hope it all falls into place? You could. We got to measure that. Is there the right guy who makes you maybe lose one of those young guys you want to keep, but you lose him? Could. But, I think we got to measure that. But I would not rule out us making an aggressive move in free agency. In general, I think we've done well in the draft. I think we've done well with our homegrown. I think most people know we got 4 or 5 guys at the end of the day that we need to sign, and they're going to cost a lot of money. And I don't think we want them walking out the door. If you want to do all that, then it gets hard to, do both, if you will.
But making an aggressive move in free agency is on the table this year.
Always it's on the table last year. We brought Odell Beckham Jr. in for a visit and decided he wasn't ready to play just yet. We will never rule out an aggressive move in free agency. Wouldn't rule out an aggressive trade.
I think Odell is running around a little bit. Can you revisit that this offseason?
Oh, absolutely. That's the way we left it with him. Hey, let's get ready to play and let's revisit it. We obviously had an interest for a reason.
Right. Look at that. Obviously, receiver is something. What are the biggest needs? What are the things you need to address to take the next step next year outside of certainly with the play calling? But.
Well, I think, one thing I think, critics have been hard on is Gallup. Gallup had some big days, but he wasn't consistent. But I think that's consistent with coming off a major knee injury that he didn't have surgery less than a year ago. He had major knee surgery. So, do I think he'll take another big step? Absolutely. Do I think, obviously we entertained, we brought in Hyatt and we entertained other receivers. Are we always looking to get better? I think Tolbert will take a step. Let's just see what happens.
Is it hard to franchise Schultz last year, and you get these 2 young kids coming up at his position? What do you do with Schultz?
I just think that's something, that's going to be part of the next 30-day process. We're going to be evaluating every player on our football team. We'll sit down with our coaching staff and we'll evaluate every player. And is he a guy most of them, the good news is we got a lot of guys that are coming back and locked in and can't go anywhere. And then we'll evaluate the guys who are going to be up. Schultz is one of them. Pollard's one of them. Dono Wilson's one of them. There's a whole group of them that we got to address. Leighton Vander Esch stepped up and had a big year for us. So he's in the mix. We've got to evaluate those guys. And then, obviously, value will come into play. And, I hate to say that about, amazing men who put it on the line for us, but they also know it's a business, and it's a business for them. And we respect that. So we'll just see how everything works out.
You expect Tyron Smith back?
I have no reason to believe he won't be.
Okay. And there's a chance Jason Peters will come back as well?
Oh, yeah. I think Jason enjoyed his time here. I think he's a valuable piece for us. And there I go again, talking about a man. Right. A man's man in Jason Peters.
Right.
And he's not a piece. He's a big man who we were glad we had and missed him when he couldn't play in that last game.
Maturing the defensive line, you got some young guys there, but you had Hankins. So how do you evaluate that? Just the interior of the line.
I think just like we do everything, we'll evaluate all of them, compare them young to the old, and I think Hankins and Carlos, are veteran guys that, not unlike a Flowers, not unlike a Fowler, and not unlike a Fowler that, Dan and Will have done great jobs of finding us the Quins of the world, and I guess it's Dan's son. I'm sure he'll be out there again, so we'll look at him. But in all seriousness, he's I think we've done a good job finding guys like that, and that fit and work, and I think one of the important things, one of the key things Will does is he's so, Will's so good with understanding what we want. And, might things change a smidge with Mike now in terms of what we're looking for, Mike, and we'll revisit that. I mean, Will and I have already talked about it. We got to get in the room with Mike and make sure, hey, we still want these type of guys. And Dan's outstanding at identifying guys that he thinks will fit what he's trying to do as a coordinator.
What do you tell fans to get up vote? I mean, obviously everybody's still disillusioned about San Francisco lost 27 years, whatever else. What do you tell the fans that you guys can still excited about getting over the vote next year?
I mean, I think we got a great football team. I mean, I look at the San Fran Philly game, and the game was almost identical to ours while San Fran had quarterbacks. And, I mean, the game was 7-7 right where we were 6-6, and we were driving at the 20 to go in to take the lead, and Pollard got hurt, and then we made a mistake. And Philly went in and scored a touchdown. So, we're knocking at the door. We got to kick the door in. And no one wants it more than Jerry. No one wants it more than me. No one wants it more than Mike. No one wants it more than Dak. No one wants it more than, I think, any man in our building. Did we get the job done? No. And I understand frustration.